Awnings is a big thing. Do we have them extended? Do we retract them? Maintenance? Can I leave them out all the time, even during 90-mile-an-hour windstorms? So let's just start with basic operation of the awning.
So basic operation, we've got our extend and retract switch inside the coach. It may be the physical switch, or it might be the one control system that you're operating off of. Regardless, going to operate the same way. Okay. So we're going to run this awning all the way out, and we're looking for this valance, which is this piece hanging down up front here. We want that hanging down at that 90-degree angle. So okay. Once it's all the way out, you leave it, as long as it's not high winds, or if you're walking away from the unit, maybe you're going down to the pool at the campsite there. At that point, we want to roll that awning all the way up. We don't want to leave it if we're not there to see it.
How do we want to operate this relative to power? Do we want to use the battery? Do we want to use shore power? Do we want to use both? So can you bring some clarity in regard to that?
Absolutely. So all of our components are a 12-volt system, so they're going to run off of that battery. So you don't need to be hooked up to shore power, but we do recommend that you are hooked up to shore power. The reason for that is, for instance, this has a leveling system on it. So when we go through that leveling sequence, if we're not hooked up to shore power, we're going to start to drain those batteries pretty significantly, right? So at that point, then we go to run our awning out, then we run our slides out. Now we're really draining those batteries. So while the systems are all 12-volt DC and they can run directly off the battery itself, it is highly recommended to be plugged into shore power just to help maintain that battery. So when you turn your lights on in your coach, they're not dim. You get that nice bright effect inside your coach.
All right, Dan, now that you've cleared up, how we operate this relative to power, the next question, of course, then is troubleshooting.
Sure.
So get to the campsite, I hook up to the shore power like Dan told us to do. It's not working. What are some of the steps that we want them to take a look at to troubleshoot?
So as far as customer troubleshooting goes, what we're going to look for is battery voltage. If they've got a voltmeter, they can go ahead and check that. Are they plugged into shore power? And at that point, it becomes how confident are they going to be in being able to fix it themselves.
Okay.
So if they've got a standard wall switch, they can take that wall switch off the wall and verify that that wall switch has power coming in along with ground.
Sure.
And then as they rock that wall switch, they can check for signals going out.
Okay.
And then they can just follow that line. They've got power and ground coming out of the side of the coach here. Right here behind me on the wall of the coach there. That's going to go up to the motor. Now if my back's to the coach just like it is now, my motor is always up on the upper left hand side.
Okay.
So I can check to see that I have power and ground all the way to that motor. If a customer's not comfortable with doing all that, simply getting a mobile tech out there to help them determine, hey, where am I not getting signal from? Is it a motor that's failed, or is the wall switch have a disconnect behind it, or is there a short in a wire from the battery someplace else?
Okay.
Another thing that customer can do, if they really need their awning out, which we would recommend not running it out, but there is a manual override, so in the event maybe they lose power and they're not able to get it in, again, up on the motor side of the awning, there's a rubber plug. They simply pop that rubber plug off using a standard cordless drill. They can use a ratchet. It'll take a little bit longer, but no impact, nothing along those lines, otherwise they could damage the motor. But they're going to take a 7/16 socket, pop that rubber cap off of there, and they're just going to run that drill to retract that awning. Once the awning's fully retracted, at that point they no longer have to worry about it being left out because of high winds or traveling with an awning that's stuck out. They shouldn't be in that situation.
And the one thing I want to be clear too, maybe they don't have a milestone. So maybe they have a Solera awning on a different coach. As long as they have the Solera awning, they'll use that same size connection for the manual override, correct?
Correct, as long as it's a power awning.
Okay.
So if by chance they have maybe an older coach, or maybe they have a coach that has a manual pull strap awning,
okay,
that is physically them just pulling that awning out and then bringing that awning back in. But yes, any Solera power awning has that manual override port, again, on the drive side.
And if they do have the powered awning, what recommended maintenance do we suggest for any customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So maintenance is huge. Obviously, you're going to want to maintain your fabric, keeping the arms, making sure there's no dirt, debris buildup in there, make sure there's no tree limbs or sticks, anything like that, because we want the awning to be able to fully collapse, right? So if there's any debris, don't hang stuff on it as best you can, but remove that stuff before we go ahead and retract it. Fabric care and maintenance, again, high winds and that kind of stuff, retract that awning. Heavy rains. This Solera system, the Solera awnings do have a auto pitch feature, which we'll get into here in a minute.
Okay.
But as far as the fabric maintenance goes, it's a bucket of hot water with some dish soap, and you're just going to go ahead and apply the awning, or excuse me, apply that solution to the awning.
Okay.
Now this awning does not only retract just normally, but you can actually reverse the awning completely. So that's another sort of hiccup where people may not have noticed they retracted the awning backwards all the way, but it's actually designed that way to help you kind of clean both sides of the fabric a little easier.
Okay.
So apply that solution, retract the awning all the way, let it soak in there for 5 minutes, extend that awning all the way back out, clean it off, and then let it air dry. If you retract it when it's wet, that's the potential to get mold or mildew to grow on your awning fabric.
Okay. All right, Dan, so let's talk about adjustment. Number one, why are you going to need to make adjustments, and then what is our process for doing so successfully?
Absolutely. So the Solera arms have an auto pitch feature built into it. So on each arm, you can simply come over here, simply, if you're as tall as I am, and pull down on this pitch arm. Now the reason why we may want to pull it down ourselves is then if there is maybe a slight rain, the water will pitch off to one side rather than the other.
Okay.
So in this case, the pitch arms are designed to auto pitch at 10 or more pounds.
Okay.
So at that point, it's going to dump either direction, whichever's heavier. So behind you, Will, you have the entry steps, right?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily want that arm to pitch, right?
Right, yeah.
Because then I got a mud puddle where the dog's laying down,
Yeah.
and I get right.
Yeah.
So over here, towards the front of the unit, this would be a more ideal situation or position for that customer to pitch.
Okay.
Now, once it's pitched, we don't recommend pushing this arm back up
Okay.
and hyperextending it like that. If we do that and then we retract the awning, one of these points here, whether it's this point here, here, or back there, will break.
Okay.
So if they pitch it, we do recommend they just leave it pitched or
Okay.
pulled down like that.
So don't return it back. Don't try to return it back up.
Correct.
Just leave it as
Yep.
is.
And in this position, when they go to retract it, it'll naturally put itself in the proper position.
You know, one question, since you just kind of outlined the replacement parts in that process, we do get inquiries a lot of times where maybe, you know, it's not completely damaged, but there's poke holes. Does Lippert offer anything in terms of, you know, to help with, you know, just small little pieces of damage?
Yeah, so if you have to replace your entire fabric, there's a fabric variant coat sticker up on the roll tube up here
Okay.
towards the drive head. In the event it's just small pinpricks or maybe a small tear, we do have on our website, and as well as your guys's, the repair kit and the small patch repair kit that they can order to do small tears or just little pinprick holes.
And that's nice because obviously if it can save them money and still have full function, it's nice to know that you guys offer that as well.
Absolutely, yeah.